All right. Well, hey, we're not south in today's chapter.
We're up
Okay.
north.
We are up north, land of the free folk.
Oh
Land
my.
of the free and home to the others, because that's what we see today.
And we see a lot of distinction between the whites and the others as well. So that's something
Yeah.
that gets reinforced very well in this chapter.
Yeah, so here we go. Samwell won, by the way. The first Sam chapter. I mean, this is just as big of an importance as the other first chapter we get in this new POV. We get that first Jamie chapter. Now we get the first Sam chapter, giving us a totally different perspective of the wall and the north. The really only other person we get is Tyrion when he's up there for like 2 chapters. You get sort of like his perception of
Him peeing
the
off
Night's
the
Watch.
wall.
Yeah, but that's really it. So now we jump into a new character, Sam. So Sam and the few survivors from the Fist of the First Men are running south in the middle of the night with a heavy snow falling. They are ringed by men with torches to keep the whites away, but Sam is beginning to lag and is near exhaustion. He eventually falls in the snow and cannot get back on his feet. He recalls the horror that occurred at the Fist when the whites fell on the Night's Watch. Mormont had commanded him to send ravens with warning, and Sam kept sending them with updates. But when it came time to send a raven with word that their end was near, Sam had already let the birds escape. The Watch held the Fist at first, using fire arrows to hold back the whites, but the dead were relentless and eventually overpowered the Watch, men dying by the score. Mormont had the survivors mount up and form a wedge, slashing past the whites and down off the Fist into the forest. Now they are running for the wall, pursued by the whites and perhaps the others. Gren tries to get Sam on his feet, but the fat steward is too tired. Finally, Small Paul arrives and carries Sam, but the 3 of them have fallen far behind the survivors with their torches, and the cold sets in. Upon an undead horse, and other appears from the swirling snow. The being kills Small Paul with its ice sword, but Sam stabs the other with the dragonglass dagger that John gave him. The dagger causes the other to melt away, body and armor, before Sam and Gren's eyes. Gren retrieves the icy cold obsidian dagger, and they once again run off to try and catch up with the other survivors.
The other survivors. All right. I was making I was kind of acting out the emotions of the scene as you read it for the visual listeners out there, or I guess visual viewers. Is that redundant? That's redundant. But sometimes you post these on YouTube, and I'm just sitting here like staring at the camera, like. So I was like, I'm gonna.
No, that's true. Yeah, I've been posting them on YouTube. They don't get that many views, so I might stop doing it. I was like, last week I was like, I'm gonna post it every week, and now they get like 5 views. So I was like, okay, well, I guess you guys actually just want clips over there. So I don't know.
I mean, we are an audio first.
That's true.
So
yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah. But let me say, it ain't over, okay, until the fat boy swings an obsidian dagger. Okay?
Let's go.
Because
I felt like I was reading a John Cena chapter. Never give up.
Okay, because that's what basically happens in this chapter. Okay, Sam the Slayer. This is where legends are born in this chapter. Okay,
this is an underrated chapter.
I think this is a top 5 chapter in the whole series.
It is so important because it drives home the fact that this gets labeled by a lot of people as a nihilistic series, and it's not. It is a series that goes into very dark places, but George is still telling a hopeful, heroic story here. It is a heroic fantasy. The heroes just happen to be flawed and also people that you would never expect. And Sam does something very important in this chapter, and that's that he keeps moving. He keeps taking the next step, and he provides hope not just for himself, but hopes for the readers, knowing that this big existential threat is coming. No one's paying attention to it, but Sam, in his just sliver of bravery, gives us hope that there is an answer to these others who are just massacring the Night's Watch. So it's a really important chapter for Sam's character, but it's also important to tell the readers, hey, there are some countermeasures that are going to happen.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about this chapter, Jimmy, is George continuously, but as he's saying Sam did this, Sam did that, Sam did this, Sam did that, it's always sobbing. Sam took another step. Sobbing. Sam, let me see, there's another one here, right? Sobbing. Sam took another step. Like he keeps using that line throughout, and it's like Sam is scared. He is tired. It's cold, but he keeps taking another step.
Sometimes that's all you got to do to stay alive.
Yeah.
There's been many a days, Matt, where I didn't think I was going to take the next step. Like, this might be it.
But
my watch may have ended.
No, Sam keeps going here. So here we go. So sobbing, Sam took another step. This is the last one, the very last. I can't go on. I can't. But his feet moved again. One and then the other. I love that George specifically uses one and then the other. You know, that's a very George thing to do. They took a step and then another. He thought, they're not my feet. They're someone else's. Someone else is walking. It can't be me. Well, by the way, could he be influenced by somebody later on? That's one of the things I want to do. And that's when we finish this whole reread.
Oh.
And when we finish the whole series, you know, this is like maybe in 40 years,
2030.
Yeah, maybe when we get Dream of Spring and whatever, and Winds of Winter, I would love to go back. And I'm sure, you know, the superhero people over at the ReRead Reddit, the subreddit will do this too, is go back and look at every moment that Bran could be influencing somebody at like along the way, and like this could be one of those moments.
So you think Sam collapses possibly, if not for Bran, maybe giving him the little nudge?
No, I'm not. I mean, it's probably just Sam, but I think that there probably are moments in this series that at the end we can go back and look, because right now Bran hasn't taken the steps he like took in the show that I think he will take in the books to become the Three-Eyed Crow. And but I do think that there are probably moments that are influenced that we don't know yet that were influence moments.
It's certainly worth considering every time we come across something like this where characters almost have that display of going against their normal like person,
or something happens where they're like, how did that just, you know, like, I don't know how, but I did this.
Yes,
could just be, yeah. But I think this chapter is, yeah, it's probably just Sam. So continuing on here. So when he looked down, he could see the stumbling through the snow, shapeless things and clumsy. His boots had been black, he seemed to remember, but the snow had caked around them, and now they were misshapen white balls, like two clubbed feet made of ice. It would not stop, the snow. The drifts were up past his knees, and a crust covered his lower legs like a pair of white greaves. His steps were dragging, lurching. The heavy pack he carried made him look like a monstrous hunchback. And he was tired, so tired. I can't go on. Mother have mercy, I can't. Every fourth or fifth step, he had to reach down and tug his sword belt. He had lost the sword on the fist, but the scabbard still weighed down the belt. He did have two knives, the dragonglass dagger John had given him, and the steel one he cut his meat with. All that weight dragged heavy, and his belly was so big and round that if he forgot to tug the belt, it slipped right off and tangled around his ankles, no matter how tight he cinched it. He had tried belting it above his belly once, but then it came down and it came almost to his armpits. Gren had laughed himself sick at the sight of it, and Dolorous Eddie said, I knew a man once who wore his sword on a chain around his neck like that. One day he stumbled and the hilt went up his nose. So Sam was stumbling himself. There were rocks beneath the snow and the roots of the trees, and sometimes deep holes in the frozen ground. Black Benner had stepped in one and broken his ankle 3 days past, or maybe 4. He did not know how long it had been truly. The Lord Commander had put Benner on his horse after that. Sobbing, Sam took another step. It felt more like he was falling down than walking, falling endlessly, but never hitting the ground. Just falling forward and forward. I have to stop. It hurts too much. I'm so cold and tired. I need to sleep, just a little sleep beside a fire and a bite to eat that isn't frozen. But if he stopped, he died. He knew that.
A lot of repetition, right? With the sobbing, taking another step. George uses this to great effect. It's funny. There are some people out there who would say that you do not want to repeat yourself when you write. And this is kind of breaking that rule and using it for your own device. And I love it. I actually love repetition in writing. I think it's a good thing. Yeah, Sam is down a bad. Very, very bad. Also, it is known that whenever you are freezing to death, that some people will like fall asleep essentially because they feel like their body is trying to like conserve energy or heat. So it'll just shut down. But there's also the feeling of whenever you're freezing to death that you basically get like a burst of energy and you actually end up taking off your clothes. You feel warmer without your clothes for some reason. So they'll find people who have been stranded on like frozen mountains who are clothless, and they're like, why? And it's just something
Right.
people do. But Sam is having the opposite effect of that. He is wanting to, lay down and take a little nap ski. Yeah,
Well,
he's
not a
done.
good idea. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but if he stopped, he died. He knew that. They all knew that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. And I think that, like you said, the repetition here is great because, but you're in the mind of somebody who is,
Mhm.
walking. I mean, we've all been there before, not freezing to death, but you've all been in moments where you're just like, you're so tired and you're doing something and you're just like, I just got to keep going. I just got to keep doing this. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, and you're just focusing on like one thing and you just got to keep going, keep pushing through and keep driving.
Yeah, tunnel vision. Yep.
Yeah, and that's what we got here. So it kind of continues on here with a lot of that same stuff, and George is just doing a great job at explaining exactly what's going on. um as he's walking here, like, and the cold was still with him, his feet especially, he couldn't even feel them. And then he talks about, like, how much it hurt. Every step made him want to scream. Was that yesterday? He can't remember. He had not slept since the fist. So I mean, they've been like walking for a while here trying to escape the others that are still like coming after them.
Yeah. And all the while getting the explanation of exactly what happened. And you realize just how like torn down this crew is. And people are dropping. And there's also a mention of like Mormont's like circle, basically like don't fall
Mhm.
outside of the circle, or like what happens. And they're picking us off one by one. Like these are basically like wounded animals running away from a predator.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's done so well. And this is one of those chapters that's just way better than what we get in the show. Way
Agreed.
better
I
than
remember
what I
this
mean, like,
scene in the show even, actually. Like, I remember it
yeah.
very well, which I struggle, like, outside of the famous scenes, I struggle to remember a lot of the scenes. But this is one I remember, and I did think today when I was rereading this, I was like, "I like this a bit more than what they gave us in the show."
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is way better. Continuing on here, then Sam starts to think, uh, you know, if only I was stronger. He wasn't, though, and it was no good wishing. Sam was weak and fat and very fat. He could hardly bear his own weight. The mail was too much for him. It felt as though it was rubbing his shoulders raw, despite the layers of cloth and quilt beneath the steel and skin. The only thing he could do was cry, and when he cried, the tears froze on his cheeks. Sobbing, he took another step. George continues doing that. And another thing he's doing here, which I really like, because we know how this ends, is they're really setting it up to be like Sam is the last person you would ever imagine to kill a White Walker.
I don't think that his heroic deeds are done yet.
Yeah.
I'm firmly on the side that I think he's gonna be the one to kill Euron's Crow's Eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be doing something, I think,
Mhm.
of vast importance in the end of the series. We also get here. There's actually a little bit of stuff here that's kind of interesting with the gods, because here you have him thinking about fire, right? And so this is actually one of a few chapters we actually do see in this. Another chapter that's in a way kind of similar to this one is if you go back a while to the Davos chapter. Remember, Davos is stranded on the rocks after the Battle of the Blackwater, and he's like just fighting to survive. It's kind of
Yeah,
a
very similar.
very similar. And you know what else Davos is doing in that chapter? He's praying to the gods.
And we talked about like who was Davos, like was it a miracle?
Right. Davos is praying to the gods to save him. He's
Mm.
praying. I believe I'll go back and I'll pull it up,
No,
but I
he
believe he
is.
might.
Yeah,
Is he praying? Is he praying to the seven? Right?
he's
Because I
praying
think he
to
said
the
it's one of
7.
the. Yeah. Is he saying "Mother have mercy"? Because Sam's doing the same thing here, and do the new gods actually save Sam?
I would like to know. I would love to know.
Because that's something similar here. So Sam is thinking too here. He wanted the fire, dreamed of the fire. If I had the
Oh,
fire, I would not be cold. But someone reminded him that he had a torch at the start, but he dropped it in the snow and snuffed the fire out. Sam didn't remember dropping the torch, but he supposed it was true. He was too weak to hold his arm up for long. Was it Ed who reminded him, or Gren? He couldn't remember that either. Fat and weak and useless. Even my wits are freezing now. But he took he took another step. I love that too, because in another way, you know, when George is saying he took another step here, in some ways it is physically another step. It is Sam physically taking another step as he's walking. But metaphorically, it is Sam taking another step forward in his journey and his personality and him actually, you know, becoming stronger and like not the old, like, you know, weak, frail person who actually showed up at the watch. I mean, after this, Sam has quite literally taken another step.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's figuratively and literally done here. I pulled up Davos 1, bro. Listen to this.
Yeah.
Are you
Mother
ready
have
for this?
mercy. Yeah. Yeah.
In his dreams, the river was still aflame, and demons danced upon the waters with fiery whips in their hands, while men blackened and burned beneath the lash. Mother, have mercy, Davos prayed. Save me, gentle mother. Save us all. My luck is gone, and my son. He was weeping freely now, salt tears streaming down his cheeks. The fire took it all, took it all. It was her, Davos cried. Mother, don't forsake us. It was her who burned you, the red woman, Melisandre. Her. And he's imagining Melisandre here, and yeah, and then says, "You rode beneath her banner, flew it away with your mass. You watched the seven burn at Dragonstone and did nothing. She gave the father's justice to the fire, and the mother's mercy and the wisdom of the crone to the fire." And he talks about the smith, the stranger, the maiden, the warrior. She burnt them all in the glory of her cruel god. Da 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 da. So, without a doubt, the main god that Davos is praying to is Mother, and Mother over and over and over.
Yeah, so here's Sam in this chapter going too. So he'd wrapped his scarf over his nose and his mouth, but it was covered with snot now, and so stiff he feared it must be frozen to his face. Even breathing was hard, and the air was so cold it hurt to swallow it. Mother have mercy, he muttered in a husky voice beneath the frozen mask. Mother have mercy, mother have mercy, mother have mercy. With each prayer, he took another step, dragging his legs through the snow. Mother have mercy, mother have mercy, mother have mercy.
And then Davos is sitting on the island when the galley pulls up and says, "But no, the mother sent her here, the mother in her mercy. She had a task for him. Stannis lives, he knew then. I have a king still and sons. I have other sons and a wife loyal and loving. How could he have forgotten? The mother was merciful indeed."
Okay, and continuing here, so this is actually a really good parallel between these two. So then Sam thinks a little bit just here about his actual like mother, saying like she can't hear me no more than the mother above. The mother was merciless. All the septons agreed, but the seven had no power beyond the wall. This was where the old gods ruled, the nameless gods of the trees and the wolves and the wolves and the snows. Mercy, he whispered. Then to whatever might be listening, old gods or new or demons too. Oh mercy, mercy me, mercy me. Massillon screamed for mercy. Why had he suddenly remembered that? It was nothing he wanted to remember. The man had stumbled backwards, dropping his sword, pleading, yielding, even yanking off his thick black glove and thrusting it up before him as if it were a gauntlet. He was still shrieking for a quarter as the white lifted him in the air by the throat and near ripped the head off of him. The dead have no mercy left in them, and the others... No, I mustn't think of that. Don't think, don't remember. Just walk, just walk, just walk. Sobbing, he took another step.
And this is interesting because he's saying that he's not in the land of the seven. He's talking about the old gods. And one of the things I've always talked about is how I feel like all of the gods, the religions, is actually like one thing and they just interpret it differently. But I just had a really, this is crackpot. So feel free to ignore me, folks.
Yeah.
If this is too far gone for y'all. Dude, what if the others are gods?
Could be.
Like the true children of like deities, and that's why the red god in Melisandre is opposing the Lord of Light, is opposing, because this is like the actual old gods like descendants. Dude, wouldn't that be
Yeah.
wild?
No, that wouldn't be wild. And some of Greek mythology includes that. When you talk about like the gods dying and stuff like that, and like new gods coming in, and so I mean, I wouldn't say that George wouldn't count any of that out.
I was just thinking, because the big part about this chapter, and the thing that me and you've been harping on for many months now, is just that the others are more than zombies, right? Like there's a lot more to them, and they seem to have mystical properties. And what if they are some tie to the former gods? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that would give direct reasoning why the Lord of Light would want to oppose The descendants of another god, possibly. I don't know. I know it's a tinfoil, but
No, that's not sinful at all. Now I do have a question for you here. So we know that George talks about writing as a gardener, where he is writing stuff like it's not like this chapter,
yeah.
then this chapter, then. Do you think? I mean, it's seeming to me just from you reading that. Do you think he wrote these chapters back to back or side by side?
I mean, very likely. We know he will plow through POVs at a time, and then kind of figure out the timeline and piece them together, then go back and rework. And
Because I mean, the similarities between what you and I just read in those passages is almost word for word identical.
yeah, and you know what? Someone listening to this might say, guys, it's the main religion in Westeros. Of course, they're saying the same thing. And to that, I would say, hey, that might be true, but actually, that's great writing. Like that shows how how me and you,
Right.
being in America and being of a
Right.
certain religion, right? Basis,
Exactly. Yeah.
we would say, oh, oh, Jesus. We both would say that, right? Or maybe
Right.
if we were in trouble, oh, Jesus, please no, So in some ways, even if it's nothing, like we're going too far, it's still great writing.
Yeah. I would. I guess the only thing I would say to that is the seven aren't actually aren't this prevalent that often in the series.
That I can remember, I would say that's correct. Yeah.
I mean, the only there's a Catelyn chapter where she's praying about about her or
Mhm.
Hoster when Hoster Tully when he's sick, she's praying, but other than that, we don't really hear we don't really see a lot of people like it's always like I prayed to the old gods, but it's never this in detailed.
Yeah,
This
that's right.
detailed.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare, actually.
Yeah. This and hey, there are two miraculous type things happening here that could be given to human will, but there's room for interpretation. And isn't that kind of like life as well, right? You survive a
Mhm.
deadly car accident, you say, somebody was watching my back. Some people walk away from it and go, I was very lucky.
Yeah.
So there's room for interpretation from each individual character. The one thing I do think is interesting is that like Davos's character, he doesn't become very pious like you would imagine with what he experienced. And he's saying, like, the mother has saved me. Sam is more so saying, I don't know what happened, but like, thank God I made it through. Whereas, like, Davos, I mean, he truly believes the mother intervened in his situation. He doesn't become pious, but he does take it as motivation to kill Melisandre.
Right.
So,
Well,
and for other reasons as well.
yeah, he is specifically dealing with like the faith. Like and like
Yeah,
or like not the faith, but
right.
like religion.
Yes.
Whereas
He is
Sam is dealing
seeing
with like there's like scary things to be on the wall.
he is seeing this priestess who is taking extreme measures to follow through on things that she believes are prophetic or real belief. And he's seeing the damage it's doing, right? And he thinks that he may have been saved to oppose her. But I just think it's interesting. Like, one thing I would like to see from Davos and a Davos POV is like more, and maybe we should look for this, but him thinking about the seven a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it sucks that we don't get more Davos chapters or Davos chapters that frequently. Like they're pretty spaced out. Um, but that is something to like you said, keep an eye on. So really, actually, the next thing that happens to Sam here is he gets saved. Back on your feet, Piggy. Someone growled at him as they went past, but Sam paid no mind. I'll just lie down in the snow and close my eyes. It wouldn't be so bad dying here. He couldn't possibly be any colder. Then he starts thinking to himself, I won't be the first to die. They can't say I was. Hundreds died in the fist. They died all around him. Shivering, Sam released his grip on the tree and eased himself down into the snow. It was cold and wet, he knew, but he could scarcely feel it through all of his clothing. He stared upward at the pale white sky as snowflakes drifted down upon his stomach and his chest and his eyelids. The snow will cover me like a thick white blanket. It'll be warm under the snow. And if they speak of me, they'll have to say I died a man of the night's watch. I did my duty. No one can say I forswore myself. I'm fat, I'm weak, I'm craven, but I did my duty. So he has stopped taking steps at this point. The Ravens had been his responsibility. That was why they had brought him along. He didn't want to go. He told them. So he told them what a big coward he was. But Maester Aemon was very old and blind besides, so they had no one to send to tend the Ravens but Sam. The Lord Commander had given him his orders when they made their camp. You're no fighter. We both know that, boy. If it happens that we're attacked, don't go trying to prove yourself otherwise. You'll just get in the way. You're to send a message. And don't come running to ask what the letter should say. Write it out yourself and send one bird to Castle Black and the other to the Shadow Tower. So again, I don't care if you're so scared you foul your breeches. I don't care if 1,000 wildlings are coming over the walls howling for your blood. You get those birds off, or I swear I'll hunt you through the 7 hells and make you a damn sorry that you did.
It's rough being Sam, by the way. I mean, my God, we get it. He's a little overweight. Can we not just constantly call him biggie and fat? Like, it's so absurd. But I do think George is playing something here from the perspective of what he's writing. We have to remember that Sam has been verbally abused his entire life, and he thinks of himself in this image. Like, Sam isn't one of those guys like, I'm going to show them one day. He is not that character. He is very much like, they're all right about me. This is who I am. And he does have a level of comfort in it, I think, where he's like, I've endorsed the fact that I'm a coward and I am, slightly overweight. And so I do think, like, when I was first reading this today, not the first time, but reading this again, I was like, George, lay off the kid a little bit. But looking at it from that perspective, that's what Sam sees himself as.
He really lays into Sam into this one. And I think the whole purpose is just like Mormont said, you're not going to be a hero, and don't even try to be one. Don't pretend you're one. Because at the end, he is the hero. That's the whole deal about this chapter he makes it seem that Sam is the single most unlikely person in all of the realm, Westeros, Essos, Planetos, the whole deal.
The Unitos, whatever.
He's the most unlikely person to take down a White Walker. But you know what?
He did it.
He does it. Yeah.
He put down this mystical ice warrior at the end of this. And I mean, man, I love Sam. I love him so much.
Yeah, so it continues here too, and then it kind of goes back a little bit too. You think about the ravens were his responsibility. The horns blew. Sam had been sleeping. He thought he was dreaming at first, but then he opens his eyes and snow was falling on the camp, and the Black brothers were all grabbing bows and spears and running towards the ring wall. Chet was the only one nearby. Maester Aemon's old steward with the face full of boils and the big wen on his neck. Sam had never seen so much fear in a man's face as when he saw Chet when that third blast came moaning from the trees. Help me get the birds off, he pleaded, but the other stewards had turned and run off, dagger in hand. He has the dogs to care for, he's thinking about all of these things. His fingers have been so clumsy. The ravens were shrieking. 2 more escaped before Sam could catch one, and when he did, it pecked through his glove. It's just getting worse and worse.
I'll tell you what it is. It's the horror movie when they can't get the keys in the damn door. And you're like, you idiot, just put the keys in the door. It's the same thing.
Yeah. The war horn had fallen silent by then, but the fist rang with the shouted commands of clattered steel. Fly. Sam called as he tossed the raven into the air. The birds in the shadow tower cage were screaming and fluttering about so madly that he was afraid to open the door, but he made himself do it anyway. This time he caught the first raven that tried to escape. A moment later, it was clawing its way through the falling snow, bearing word of attack. His duty done, he finished dressing with clumsy, frightened fingers, donning his cap and surcoat and hooded cloak and buckling on his sword belt, buckling it real tight so it wouldn't fall down. This is like he's remembering what happened. Now we already know it's still falling down because that's where he was, at the beginning of the chapter. So it kind of goes back here. So, the Lord Commander said I wasn't to rush the ring wall, he recalled, but I said I shouldn't come running to him either. Sam took a deep breath and realized he did not know what to do next. He remembers turning in a circle, lost, the fear growing inside of him. There were dogs barking, horses trumpeting, but the snow muffled the sounds and made them seem far away. Could the torches have gone out? That was too scary to think about. The horn blew thrice. That means others. So, it's like, it's just real freaking scary here for Sam. It's all happening all at once.
Yeah, and George R. R. Martin does such a good job of setting atmosphere in these type of scenes. I recently just read 2 short stories, really novellas, by George R. R. Martin, and that is so consistent throughout all of his stories, whether it's A Song of Ice and Fire or not. The dude gets horror for sure. By the way, folks, totally recommend you check out Sand Kings. It's 40 pages, and it's one of the best short stories I've ever read. It's phenomenal, and it's by George R. R. Martin. You can actually read it online for free. Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Highly recommend it. It won a Hugo in 1980 for the best novelette.
Okay, so is it about Dorne?
No, it is. It is.
It's-
I thought it was going to be a Dune ripoff because it's sci-fi, and I was like, Sand
Mm,
Kings. Like, is he going to do his own
right.
like little short story about Dune? No, it's nothing like that.
Well, I mean, he wrote the Ice Dragon around that time too, and that's
I mean, he won a Hugo for that as well, I believe, for children's story, if I'm not mistaken. So he was on a
yeah.
roll in the '80s, folks. And he didn't write a song by his fire to the '90s, which is crazy. Matt, that's your homework for next week. I want
Okay.
you
I'll
to read. It's 40 pages, and there's
I'll
an
check. Yeah, I'll
audiobook
read
on
it.
YouTube. There's an audiobook
Okay.
on YouTube.
I'll check it out. Yeah, just remind me. Remind me
It's so
to,
good,
to
dude.
read it. So it's kind of continuing on here. And really they're just setting the scene. Like they're getting attacked, right? He's thinking to himself, if I have to die, let me die beside my friends, he remembered thinking. But all the men around him were strangers, Shadow Tower men under the command of some ranger named Blaine. Here they come, he heard a brother say. Notch, said Blaine, and 20 black arrows were pulled from as many quivers and notched as a bowstrings. God be goods, there were hundreds, a voice said. Draw, Blaine said, and then hold. Sam could not see and did not want to see. The men of the Night's Watch stood behind their torches, waiting with arrows pulled back to their ears as something came up that dark, slippery slope through the snow. Hold, Blaine said again. Hold, and then loose. The arrows whispered as they flew. First of all, let me say this. Up until this point, all we ever see about the Night's Watch is that these people are like
Degenerates.
thieves,
Yeah.
murderers, rapers, terrible. But right here, they are the men of the Night's Watch.
They're
You know what I
actually
mean?
filling
Staring down the others and zombies, and they are defending. They are quite literally right now the shield that guards the realm of men.
That is a good point, though, and that all of this like training and what they go through actually ends up mattering. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though they are a bunch of degenerates, like you said, they're women abusers, they're thieves, they're crooks. Um, it is something to see them kind of shed that reputation and become something bigger, and really fight against like this insurrection.
Yeah, absolutely. So the arrows whispered as they flew. A ragged cheer went up from the men along the ring wall, but it died quickly. They're not stopping, my lord. More, gods have mercy. That just sort of keeps coming. And Sam is thinking about this as he's laying in the snow, right? So he's laying in the snow and he's thinking like back to all of this. So he's like, even colder now. The snow feels almost warm. I feel better now. A little rest was all I needed. Maybe in a little while I'll be strong enough to walk again. In a little while. And then this is where it gets kind of crazy. A horse stepped past his head, a shaggy gray beast with snow in its mane and hooves crusted with ice. Sam watched it come and watched it go. Another appeared out from the falling snow with a man in black leading it. When he saw Sam in his path, he cursed him and led the horse around. I wish I had a horse, he thought. If I had a horse, I could keep going. I could sit and even sleep some in the saddle. Most of their mounts had been lost in the fist. Though, and those that remained carried their food, their torches, and their wounded. Sam wasn't wounded, only fat and weak, the greatest craven in the Seven Kingdoms. Again, right? Continuing to lay into him.
Just
George is
burying him.
really setting the scene. He's like a terrible person. Then there's a couple other times too when he was thinking back to the mother, Mercy. He thinks back to his family. Here he thinks about it again. He was such a coward. Lord Randall, his father, had always said so, and he had been right. So they just kind of sort of go into Sam's backstory a little bit here. As it continues on, he's thinking about his dad knows it. Why should he care? A coward's not worth weeping over. Like if he were to die, the old bear knew it too.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts back to what was happening with the messages. Fire arrows. The Lord Commander roared that night on the fist. He's saying, Tarly, get out of here. Your place is with the ravens. He says, I got the messages away. I got them. Good. Mormont's shoulder, Raven. On Mormont's shoulder, his raven echoed, good. So that's something to think about too.
Yeah, I was trying to look at the Ravens speech here, and I didn't find anything like.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, there's not. I couldn't make any connections with it.
Yeah. So he's thinking here too. Maybe I should have written the message ahead of time so we can get the birds away as fast as needed. But he didn't know what he was. What would be right. So it just a lot of this sort of continuing about like them getting attacked and stuff like that.
Now there is a piece in there where it seems like a zombie bear attacks, and it's unclear whether or not Sam is misinterpreting what's happening with the bear. Like he says, it might be a bear, it might be a giant. Like he's like confused. But I thought it was interesting that we might have had a visual of a dead bear coming, and fighting whenever the old bear, Lord Commander Mormont, is about to die in the next Samwell POV.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, is that foreshadowing? Is that him? Like, he's not sure if he saw a dead bear or not. And then it's actually Mormont. Like, that's foreshadowing for Mormont dying in a little bit.
Oh, that is kind of interesting. I guess I hadn't thought about that.
And then I went one step further and I was like, whoa, what if Mormont ends up being a white?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too far.
I don't know if that's happening, but well, it could. So kind of continues here. I'm going to skip quite a bit ahead here because it's just sort of, yeah, like you said, a giant, bloody huge, a bear, dead wildlings, and a giant or maybe a bear on us all around. Whites are over the ring wall fighting inside the camp. Lord Commander Mormont is meeting them with fire. We've won. We're winning. We're trapped on the fist, hard pressed. Like, he's thinking about what he's writing and everything. Sam wrote the battle's lost. We're all lost. Like, so it sounds like he's just frantically writing. He does doesn't he know what to say? So as it kind of continues here, why must he remember the fight at the fist? He didn't want to remember, not that. He tried to make himself remember his mother or his little sister Tala or that girl Gilly at Craster's Keep. Somebody was shaking him on the shoulder. Get up, a voice said. Sam, you can't go to sleep here. Get up and keep walking. I wasn't asleep. I was remembering. Go away, he said. His words frosting in the cold air. I'm well. I want to rest. Get up. Gren's voice, harsh and husky. He loomed over Sam. His blacks crusty with snow. There's no resting, the old bear said. You'll die. So now we have Gren here, who's coming to save him, and some of the other men of the Night's Watch. So continuing on here, right? You'll freeze. The others will get you. Sam, get up. The night before they left the wall, Pip had teased Gren the way he did, and they're just sort of thinking back to some of that too. But then he does think about John here a little bit. So, Sir Alistair Thorne had called him Aurochs, the same way that Sam, Sir Piggy, and John, Lord Snow. But he had always treated Sam nice enough. That's only because of John, though. If it weren't for John, none of them would have liked me. And now John was gone, lost in the Skirling Pass with Corin Halfhand, most likely dead. Sam would have cried for them, but those tears would only freeze as well, and he could scarcely keep his eyes open now.
Yeah, and remembering John, right? Our only other POV we've had at the Night's Watch, really.
Yeah. So so Gren comes over and saves him. He's basically getting Sam to his feet. They're trying to lift him. You're too bloody heavy. Gren, jammed his hands into Sam's armpits and saved. Hey, no man left behind at the night.
That's right. That's right. Hey, okay. And this is a brotherhood. I mean, they're showing some camaraderie here. This is important stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Our last chapter was about the Brotherhood without banners, and now here we are, the Night's Watch.
And really, when it comes down to it, it's all about this like smaller communities within this big country, right? And how those things and taking care of each other. They're all fighting a war. They're just all fighting different ones.
Yeah. So, continuing on here, we see Small Paul, right? A face loomed close, a broad, brutal face with a flat nose and small, dark eyes and a thicket of coarse brown beard. He'd seen that face before, but it took him a while to remember. Small Paul. Melting ice ran down into his eyes from the heat of the torch. Can you carry him? I carried a calf once that was heavier than him. I carried him down to his mother so he could get a drink of milk. Sam's head bobbed up and down with every step. So Small Paul's got him. He's carrying him.
Mm-hmm.
Carrying
impressive,
Sam,
honestly.
Right, which is really strong, right? So that should sort of put you back into the mindset of he could in fact be related to Duncan the Tall, right?
Yeah. I love that so much.
Right. Yeah. Duncan was carrying, like a lord's wife upstairs is what happened here. Small Paul's got to carry Sam. So I mean, Dunk definitely got the better of it. In that comparison here. So but Sam is just saying, like, he's so tired, he's so cold, just let me die, is what he's saying. Be quiet, Sam, save your strength, think about your sisters and brother. Then he's thinking about, songs he's got, right? Sam knew 100 songs. Like, just think about a Sam song. How about the Bear and the Maiden Fair? That makes a reappearance here.
Speaking of repetition, right?
Right. Also, Bear and the Maiden Fair, right?
Mhm.
Does and Small Paul is the one carrying Sam, and Sam's thinking about that song. That kind of ties into Duncan Egg as well too. So the bear that had come up with the fist had no hair left on its rotted flesh. He didn't want to think about bears, no songs. Think about your ravens then. They were never mine. They're the Lord Commander's ravens of the ravens of the Night's Watch. So it kind of continues on here, and I'm just going to kind of skip like way ahead here because that's mostly what is happening here. And he's just sort of I don't know. It's almost like he's just delirious.
Well, and he's also, if you notice, he's trying to find reasons not to hang on. He doesn't have an identity. Sam has nothing that he takes like pride in or stands up for, really. The only thing that we see kind of in his recollection is he seems like he has a vast amount of respect for John, even more so than Old Bear. So I think that's what this is. It's Sam trying to find any excuse to truly give up, and they won't let him. So whenever he was at his weakest and actually ready to lay down and go to sleep, his brothers picked him up.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm going to skip kind of way ahead here, kind of to the end, because it doesn't it's kind of a lot of the same stuff here. But here we go. So there's quite a bit away here. Who goes there? A horse's head emerged from the dark. They're all kind of riding together. A horse's head emerged from the darkness. Sam felt a moment's relief until he saw the horse. Hoarfrost covered it like a sheen of frozen sweat, and a nest of stiff black entrails dragged from its open belly. On its back was a rider pale as ice. Sam made a whimpery sound deep in his throat. He was so scared he might have pissed himself all over again, but the cold was in him, a cold so savage that his bladder felt frozen solid. The other slid gracefully from the saddle to stand up on the snow. Sword slim it was, and milky white. Its armor rippled and shifted as it moved, and its feet did not break the crust of the new fallen snow. Small Paul unslung the long, hafted axe stripped across his back. Why'd you hurt that horse? That was Malway's horse. Sam groped for the hilt of his sword, but the scabbard was empty. He had lost it on the fist. He remembered too late. Get away. Gren took a step, thrusting the torch out before him. Away, or you burn. He poked at it with the flames. The other sword gleamed with a faint blue glow. It moved toward Gren, lightning quick, slashing. When the ice blue blade brushed the flames, a screech stabbed Sam's ears sharp as a needle. Now, remember, that's the second time we've heard that with the others, is that there's also this like screeching sound that comes along with them. Like, remember when they're fighting, go all the way back to the Game of Thrones prologue, it says when their swords hit, it made us as like this screeching sound.
Yes, and needle, which Arya has. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
Oh no, yeah. So the head of the torch tumbled sideways to vanish beneath a deep drift of snow. The fire snuffed out all at once, and all Gren had was a short wooden stick. He flung it at the other, cursing, and Small Paul charged at it with his axe. The fear that filled Sam then was worse than any fear he'd ever felt before, and Samwell Tarly knew every type of fear. Mother, have mercy, he wept, forgetting the old gods in his terror. Father, protect me. His fingers found his dagger, and he filled his hand with that. The white's had been slow, clumsy thing, but the other was light as snow on the wind. It slid away from Paul's axe, armor rippling, and its crystal sword twisted and spun and slipped between the iron rings of Paul's mail, through leather and through wool and bone and flesh, and it came out the back with a hiss. So, I mean, that's like pretty insane power.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the thing, is like, these aren't just like, even the White Walkers in the show that were like personalities, like the head guys, like, I don't feel like they had this like magical element to them. Like, not the same, at least. Right. We're talking about them. They're riding their horse. They got this like magical armor on, and their swords are very significant in both the prologue and here.
Right. Yeah, its crystal sword twisted and spun and slipped between the iron rings of his mail, going through wood, bone, and flesh, and came out the backs. I mean, that's like an insane amount of force, too.
Yes.
I mean, I mean, obviously it's like magical qualities and stuff like that too. But I mean, for ice to pierce through all of that, that's like pretty insane.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, impaled, his blood smoking around the sword. The big man tried to reach his killer with his hands and almost had before he fell. The weight of him tore the strange pale sword from the other's grip. Do it now. Stop crying and fight, you baby. Fight Craven. It was his father he heard. It was Alistair Thorne. It was his brother, Dickon, the boy, Rast. Craven, Craven, Craven. He giggled hysterically, wondering if they would make a wight of him, a huge fat wight always tipping over its own dead feet. Do it, Sam. Was it John now? John was dead. You can do it. You can do it. Just do it. And then he was stumbling forward, falling more than running, really closing his eyes and shoving the dagger blindly out before him with both hands. He heard a crack like the sound ice makes when it breaks beneath a man's foot, and then a screech so shrill and sharp that he went staggering backward with his hand over his muffled ears and fell hard on his arse. When he opened his eyes, the other's armor was running down its legs in rivulets as pale as blue blood hissed and steamed around the black dragonglass dagger in its throat. It reached down with two bone white hands to pull out the knife, but where its fingers touched the obsidian, they smoked. Sam rolled onto his side, eyes wide as the other shrank and puddled, dissolving away in 20 heartbeats. Its flesh was gone, swirling away like a fine white mist. Beneath were bones like milk glass, pale and shiny, and they were melting too. Finally, only the dragonglass dagger remained, wreathed in steam as if it were alive and sweating. Gren bent to scoop up and flung it down again at once. Mother, that's cold. Obsidian, Sam struggled to his knees. Dragonglass, they call it. Dragonglass. Dragonglass. He giggled and cried and doubled over to heave his courage out of the snow. Gren pulled Sam to his feet, checked Small Paul for a pulse, and closed his eyes, then snatched up the dagger again. This time he was able to hold it. You keep it, Sam said. You're not Craven like me. So, Craven, you killed an other. Gren pointed with the knife. Look there, through the trees. Pink light. Dawn, Sam. Dawn. That must be east. If we head that way, we should catch Mormont. If you say. Sam kicked his left foot against a tree to knock off the snow, then the right. I'll try. Grimacing, he took a step. I'll try harder, and then another. Honestly, 10 out of 10 chapter.
So good. The ending is massive. I mean, this is one of the very few times we can count on like one hand where we see an other proper.
This is like it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like this and the prologue. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and Sam the Slayer, right? I mean, this is the dawning of a whole new chapter for Sam and showing us the reader who was introduced. I think you're meant to get a little annoyed by Sam in this. I think it's purposely repetitious to drive this home and to make us doubt him and maybe even cheer against him a little bit. But he does give us the biggest glimmer of hope we have against this existential threat, and it also adds to the mystery of the White Walkers and exactly what's going on there, because clearly they are intelligent and they have a whole thing going on up north that we don't know about yet, and we still don't know about. But dragonglass. We know that the small folk, or the normal people, think that it's made from dragons, while maesters say it comes from the fires of the earth. It is sharper than normal blades of steel, but it's far more brittle, and it's also used to make the glass candles, which the Valyrians were big fans of. And let us not forget that the Valyrians also had volcanoes, kind of the fires of the earth going all around, and kind of harvested that energy. It seems that's kind of what Valyria feels like, and the doom is probably them overdoing it. That's my speculation, at least. There's also a big faceless man theory that I love. So there's so much there, dude. There's so much there in that final couple paragraphs that will one day, hopefully when the series is finished, we'll come back to it and be like, oh, wow, Sam was the first one to kind of put this together.
Yeah, so there's definitely some interesting things here. So in the show, when they kill, anytime a White Walker is killed, or you see them, there's two White Walkers that John kills, both of which he kills with Valyrian steel sword, long claw. And then Arya, when Arya kills the Night King, they just shatter. Right. This is a little different here too. I mean, that does sort of happen, but Sam talks about how when it's killed, it like melts, like as if it is like it's just been touched with like it's almost like if you watch one of those videos on YouTube where people take like, ice and they just stick like, I mean, like super hot metal on top of it and just like melts all the way through. I mean, that's what it sounds like is happening to like the bones, the armor, all of it.
Yeah, and it's not even like, oh, it sounds like it vanishes. Like it legitimately vanishes.
Is like
So
it ceases to exist.
yeah, it's like you're banned from the world. I mean, it is magical. There's no doubt. And George has actually been quoted saying, yes, it is like real obsidian, but it has magical elements. Like he's basically said, like, my world does have some magic, believe it or not. And this is one of those elements that does. So there's something crazy going on here. I also saw a in the history tab on a Wiki of Ice and Fire. It says, during the Doom of Valyria, red clouds rained down dragonglass and the black blood of demons. So, what's that all about?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so I mean they could be connected too. So there's also sometimes there are things that are referred to as dragon steel, like that is different than like Valyrian. I mean, it probably is Valyrian steel, but so
Mhm.
there's dragon glass, which is like obsidian. Then there's some things that are referred to as like dragon steel, like total. It's just like there are. So sometimes you'll see that, especially in like World of Ice and Fire, you'll see it listed as you'll see things specifically called dragon steel.
Yeah.
So yeah, so definitely a lot of like interesting to here looking at it. Beneath the bones were milk glass pale. Beneath were bones. So I mean, they have bones, right? They have armor too. That's another thing. The White Walkers that we see in the show are just like guys in blue with armor.
Yeah,
You
and
know
some
what
of
I
them
mean?
have like random armor, but
It's
this
just
one has,
regular.
it's
It
like
has like it's like
gleaming.
ice armor. Yeah. So think of it more of like I don't even know. I
Well, it sounds like
mean,
it has a rippling effect too, like almost like a magical shield type deal.
shimmer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
shimmer. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good way of putting it. I mean, that is what it's described as in the book. So we're dealing with a whole other level of like magic to them, not just being zombies, right?
Yeah, and so you wonder, I guess the thing that is kind of interesting is how does Sam actually attack it? Because I mean, it's so fast that it was able the one we see fight Waymar Royce was so fast that it's able to just like sidestep his attacks, and that's like somebody who's trained and all this stuff, and then it just does it just like think what is happening
Take a
here,
look at
and it just
Sam and probably
Sam
read
just
his
catches
mind.
him off guard, or yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
kind
probably read
of
his mind and saw his nature and was like, I'm about to go take out this other big guy instead.
right. Exactly, like,
Maybe.
I'm gonna like yeah, exactly. It did so that's another thing too, where it's not this keep trying to hark home the difference between, like, a white and a White Walker. Like, the whites they're just pretty much zombies.
You want to know my crazy theory about all this, Matt?
What's that?
Are you ready?
Yeah,
You know why he ended up killing Small Paul?
because it knows it's related to cold hands. I don't know.
No, that's right.
Oh, you think so? Yeah.
What if
It
that
chose Small Paul over Sam.
everybody, well, obviously Small Paul also went to attack it, but just let me have fun. Maybe he said, hey, that looks like Cold Hands, who is Sir Tall, and a great 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 grandfather or whatever it might be to Small Paul.
Yeah,
Possibly saw him as a threat. I don't
could
know.
be. Yeah, there could be. We also don't know if Small Paul. Well, we don't know if Small Paul is Dunk, but we think so. That's most by far the most likely candidate. We don't really know how powerful Cold Hands is. Cold
Yeah, we
Hands,
really don't.
yeah. Like maybe Cold Hands is what the White Walk. Maybe Cold Hands is what the Children of the Forest were hoping to achieve when they made the if they made the White Walkers. We in the show verse, we know they did. In the book verse, that might not be the case. It seems I think there's still a good possibility that because that'd be kind of like the whole reason why the children are working against them.
Well, and there's another thing to consider. The Children
But
of
it is
Force.
possible still that they are their own thing.
Yeah, it could be a totally own thing. But what I will say is this: it's almost a giveaway that it is the Children of the Forest that made them here, because the Children of the Forest used obsidian and dragon glass for weapons in the Wars of the First Men. And
Right.
they know this because a maester found in an old rib cage obsidian arrowheads. And like there's actually some facts to this, right? That they
Right.
know that the Children of the Forest use obsidian. So if you were going to create a nuclear threat essentially to the planet, you would want them to be weak to your weapons, right? Because that's how
Right.
you. So maybe that's the giveaway.
Yeah. It'd be like, yeah, it's kind of like, here, we'll give you guys guns, but we have all the bulletproof vests.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm
Not that
saying.
not the bulletproof vests stop everything, but
Right.
just as a
It's a fine
sort of
analogy.
example. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
just saying.
yeah. So the other thing real quick, I just don't want to skip over this, is that Sam is getting all of this stuff too. Like, you can do it. You can do it. Like, do
Mhm.
it, Sam. John, like all of this stuff. Like, you're the kind of thing. And the funny thing about that, not that they're related, but it does immediately jump to Small Paul, right? In every dunk and egg story, and every dunk and egg story kind of goes in the almost like the exact same way too. And that Dunk is also in his own way, like kind of the unlikely hero. Is So you could almost say it's like the torch is being passed. And we said Dunk is like, except like Dunk and Sam are actually the polar opposite. Whereas
One's
like,
naturally gifted.
yeah, Dunk is super big and strong, but like not kind of sure of himself and kind of dumb. Like, just like he's in general just kind of dumb.
He's like thick as
Whereas
a
like,
castle wall, I'd say.
exactly, like Sam is the opposite. Sam is actually like really smart, like
Yeah.
really smart, but he like so it's kind of, in some instances, Dunk has confidence, but he doesn't. So, but anyway, the parallel is in every Dunk and Egg story, Dunk is about to lose. Like, he's about to die, he's about to lose, and he always hears Egg in the background. Get up, sir. You have to get up. Every story has that.
Yeah.
Where Dunk is like fighting somebody and he's about to die, and he hears it. Like, the one I like the most, I mean, it's good in the Hedge Knight, but it's way better in the Sworn Sword, where he's fighting was it Lucas Longinch or whatever his name is. But they're fighting in the river, and like Dunk is like almost being drowned, and like as he's like his head's bobbing and stuff like that, like he hears Egg like on one of the seconds where his head bobs up, like, you have to get up, sir. And then like you don't even, Dunk almost like kills him without even really knowing what's happening, because it's all kind of a thing. And that's kind of like the same thing that's happening here, where Sam's like about to die, and through whatever he's hearing John, like, you have to do it.
Yeah, the human connection is congruent through a lot of these stories, right? Even Jamie and Brienne to a certain degree. I think that you could probably apply some of this to that as well. And that's why I always say that George is writing heroic fantasy. It's just from a different perspective than what we were used to it at this point in the genre. So the people who just, laud the nihilistic label at the series, just they haven't read it right. To be honest,
Yeah.
like that's inspiring stuff. If I'm getting drowned, I hope I can hear you in my head, Matt.
Hey, I try to be as inspirational as possible.
Jimmy, get up. I
Get
can't
up.
do the podcast alone.
You have to get up, Jimmy. You'll next time when when you're done with staph infection, you can go to jiu-jitsu again. All right, and you can fight a black belt. Hey, you have to get up.
You've
Jimmy's
already had
like,
one co-host that died on you. You can't have another.
Jimmy will be like, "But what belt are you in jiu-jitsu?"
I'm a purple belt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Blue belts are like real hardcore, aren't they?
Well, it's white.
I mean, it's like
blue,
blues
purple.
before black, but like, oh, I thought blue belts were pretty legit.
No, they just stuck around. That's all that anyone can get a blue belt. Yeah. Purple
What's
belt
before black?
Brown. Purple, brown, black.
Okay. Oh, I mean, brown belts. A brown belt in jiu-jitsu is probably pretty hardcore, though, right? I mean, they're.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
But
so maybe if right now you were going to get some brown belt, I could be like, you have to get up. You gotta.
Hey, not to brag on myself, but I have tapped out 2 black belts before. Just saying.
Okay, there we go.
I'm just saying, right. We don't keep track in the gym, but I did.
Well, yeah, I would too. So anyway, yeah, same type of same type of thing here. So there's one other little thing here too. One also, like, well, 2 things. One is mother, that's cold. So he does say, like, to the mother, right? Oh, that's cold. When he goes to pick up the thing. And then the other one is, as he's look through the trees, pink light dawn. So the connection to dawn, perhaps being the thing, and also the pink light. Specifically, pink is the sigil of House Dane, and they have the sword Dawn. So there's
And
like
a fat pink mast.
Pink mast.
Yeah, Sam's wiener. Whenever he ends up having
Oh,
to see
Jesus. Okay. Jesus Christ. He doesn't hook up with Gilly in the books, does he?
Oh yeah. He pulls out the
on the boat. On the boat, yes, he does. Yeah,
he pulls out the fat pink
yes,
mask, my friend.
Yes, he does.
Oh, that's the best. That's the best thing I've ever done on this podcast. I could retire.
Well, okay. There
your face when I said Sam.
I was confused. Jesus, Mother
have mercy. Get this man an extends.
Hymns. Okay, they were a sponsor for a couple of weeks. All right, we're looking at Hymns. If you want to sponsor us again, we're here for it. But anyway, the pink light and dawn, House Dane. So there is like that connection as well, which is just, I don't know that it's like, a big, I think it's just kind of a little more subtle hint George is doing there.
Yeah, I would agree. It is a cool connection.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's it. Jenny, any other thoughts on this chapter here before we?
No, I'm just gonna think about the fat pink mask.
Now you're thinking about Sam's fat pink mask.
I got wiener on the brain, man.
Well, I mean, Gilly obviously. Well, I mean, Gilly's only been with two people, Craster and Sam.
Craster and Sam. I'm
yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, let me see here. And again, hey, by the way, we asked for it last time, but so next time we'll be in Tyrion. By the way, if you guys want to share your thoughts like beforehand, you can shoot us those emails at btkcast@gmail.com and we'll read your guys' comments. But otherwise, I do have some comments here just from like the Reddit and stuff like that of people who've read it and things they sort of said. Let me get some things pulled up here. I remember somebody saying they thought this was also the best chapter that they had read, but so Sam's one of my favorite characters. I really like the repetition of the sentence sobbing Sam took another step. It made me feel like I was walking with him. It's such a despairing chapter. His freezing walk, the way he gives up entirely and just wants to die a little, but is picked up by a man who dies just a few pages later. Sam is one of the most lovable characters in the entire series. And you can see him grow in this chapter. I think killing the other was the first time we see that. Do it now. Stop crying and fight, you baby. Fight, Craven. It was the father he heard. It was Alistair Thorne. It was his brother Dickon, the boy, Rast, Craven. He thinks of himself as a coward, but when he's shoved in a corner, he came through. And that paragraph just made me smile so much. Sam kicked up his left foot against a tree and knocked all the snow off. Then the right. I'll try, grimacing. He took another step. I'll try hard. And then another. Yeah, there's also some similarity too. You could say to the John chapter, where like John thinks about like killing the boy.
Oh
like
yeah,
John has that running, and then like Daenerys be a dragon, right? And like Arya uses her inner monologue as well of like swift as water, right? So there's a lot of that like inner monologue here too with Sam.
Oh, my camera shut off.
But
I wouldn't.
Well, the long night is getting really long over here, so that's fine. We're closing up shop here. So, all right. With that, we can go ahead and say we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing A Storm of Swords, Tyrion 3.
And if you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com or bendthekneepodcast.com.
We'll see you next time. And remember that winter is coming. And Jimmy quite literally took the black with his camera there.
I sure did.
And it
is not good.